What's good? It's the Watch Out of Norway back here in the place to be, out of my crib in Norway. And with another flashback today, I'm going back to my sophomore second album, the follow up to Renegades, that dropped in 2005. But this came out in 2008 and was titled Untouchable. After Renegades, I wasn't really going to do more albums. I figured, it was mission accomplished. I had a dope album with dope featured artists from the US on it, a lot of dope beats and cuts, and, they really represented me as an artist and a DJ and a producer and all that. So I figured that was it, mission accomplished, and I wasn't going to do anymore. But kind of by accident, I happened to do more anyway because this guy from Boston, Drew Garrity, rest in power, by the way. Sadly, he passed away way too young. But Drew, he got at me and he wanted me to do a remix album for his label, Commonwealth Records in Boston, that was award winning around that time as the best hip hop label in Boston. So, he wanted to send me his whole catalog of verses, like old acapellas for released and unreleased stuff on the Commonwealth Records label. And they had some of the best MCs from Boston on there. So I was going to do a remix album along with a Swedish producer named Jimmy Ledrak. We were going to do like 50-50, or I probably did most of the album like 60-40 or something like that. So, I said, yeah, I'll do it. And the payment for doing that was that I could use the whole Commonwealth Records label catalog verse archives. So he sent me acapellas for like everything he had in his archives, and I was free to use them on my albums. So that was a good deal, and that was the start of Untouchable, because then I was like, okay, I got all these new dope verses. And some of my homies hit me up as well, and I was like, okay, now I got enough material for another album, because I'd used all the featured verses I had back then for the Renegades album. So I didn't have any verses left either, but I did have a lot of beats because I continued making beats and stuff like that. So finally, in 2008, because of all of that, my second album, Untouchable, dropped, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit today. You're seeing a vinyl version here, and that's unreleased. It's a private pressing that I only pressed one copy for myself, so I never released this as an album. But it's an edited version to fit the songs in on, two sides on a vinyl. Not unlimited space on that, of course, compared to CDs and definitely digital, which is limitless. But anyway, you got some song titles here. You got label Uncut Productions, my label logo down there, and yeah, a few credits right here that I produced everything except a track produced by a friend of mine, etc. I'm going to talk about that soon as I take you through it song by song. And this is, let me see if I can pull out the vinyl real quick and just show you the wax as well here. Try not to fuck anything up, being this is the only copy of it in the world, you know what I mean? Kind of important, to say the least. This is what the vinyl looks like anyway. You got the label is what's on the rear of the digital version anyway. But if I flip it over, yeah, I'll be extra careful here today, all right? Flip it over, flipped it to green there, just color changes and stuff like that. So this is what the Untouchable vinyl looks like. I'm gonna put the phone down while I put it carefully back in its sleeve where it belongs when it's not on the turntable. But yeah, man, it's the Watch Out of Norway, place to be. And I'll be right back to review and do a flashback on my sophomore album Untouchable today. So let's go. This is the CD version of it. See if I can open that up and show you. Kind of hard as, nah, it's okay. It's kind of the same as the vinyl label without the letters and everything. And you got your track list over here, and I also got the track list back here and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know if you can see all the lettering, but I'm gonna go through it anyway. Song by song, Untouchable, my second album, is the Why Should I Know Way in the place to be. Starting up with the opening banger here called Without a Shadow of Doubt, featuring my people from Milwaukee, the Peace Man, Bobby Brewski, Clark Bent, Aaron Wade, and JB on that one. And yeah, the beat is on some 70s porn funk type shit. I sampled. I don't remember the name of the song, but I sampled like a funk track of the Ultimate Breaks and Beats series that hadn't been used all that much. So I just chopped it up a lot and made it like a porn funk opening banger with some hard boom bap drums and stuff like that. So and the Beastmen, they used my name in the hook and the song title, without a shadow of a doubt. So it was the perfect intro track for the Untouchable album, definitely. Mabi. Next up, Sick Rhymes, featuring my man from Denmark, Mr. Malco, who also hooked up with Reef the Lost Cause from Arm and the Pharaohs AOTP for that banger. It's more on some cinematic, sinister, hardcore, a little AOTP style type shit in a way there. And yeah, definitely a dope track. I sampled from a soundtrack. I wonder if it was Land of the Giants. I'm not so sure. You can check it out if you want. I'm not a big sample snitcher. I don't really like sample snitching on myself or others unless it's common knowledge that's available on whosampled.com and stuff like that. But yeah, I'll talk a little bit about it anyway. Next up, the title track "Untouchable," featuring my peoples from Chicago, Matlock and Verbal Kent. I was in touch with the label Gravel Records out there in Chicago through Aaron Wade in Milwaukee, and I hooked up with Matlock and Verbal Kent, and I did some songs for their albums. And they did some verses for mine that ended up as the title track on this one, which is your basic, kind of half epic, like with horns and everything, stabby beat with chopped sounds and stuff. I used the SP1200 for the full album here, as I did with Renegades. Was made solely on the SP1200 classic emulator sampler there. Perhaps the most classic in the world of hip hop and house music as well. Anyway, I did like a little solo at the end of the title track Untouchable here. Just played it on the pads on the SP1200, trying to push beats a little bit further than most people did, Next song was the first one that was a result of me working with Drew Garrity on the Commonwealth Records Remixed and Rarities album and the verses he gave me for this, which is Robots featuring Clockworks on a futuristic sci-fi type beat on some spaced out shit that actually it was sampled from more like an action thriller type movie soundtrack. Next up, take it to the East Coast, to New York to be exact, featuring my man King Crayon of the Long Shots and Eddie Kane, Enot, and Nux. A couple of those guys, I think it was Nux or Enot or both, were in the crew The Reavers, by the way, who only did one album, but it's an underground classic from back then, The Reavers. Anyway, tight epic style track there with a bit of horns and everything. The East Coast, of course, representing New York. From there, I took it to the west side with LA, California, featuring Tash from the Alcoholics. And this was a track I didn't produce myself. It was produced by my friend Gaute, or the coach. His name was the coach because he's a tennis coach, I believe. So, he used that for as a producer name, as a hip hop producer, and he's a dope drummer as well. But yeah, he made the beat on LA, California, and I did the scratching and the cuts there. It's on some basic West Coast type shit with a P Funk style with hand claps and everything like that. It's real fat on the P Funk tip, and nice scratches. What it was we were working with Tash from the Alcoholics on a full EP. But it was never released. I don't know what happened with that, but there was like 4 or 5 songs I did scratching on that my man the coach produced, and but then they were never released, so they're still unreleased. I don't know. Should we drop them? Perhaps they're. I mean, they're dope. If we can, we'll see. We'll see what's gonna happen with that. Don't really like dope tracks to stay in archives forever. But anyway, featuring Tash from Alcoholics there on LA, California, with only the cuts by me, not the beat. Next up, bringing it back, part two, featuring Esoteric from AOTP and my man Mike Stalls too. And yeah, that was played a lot on the late night hype show Hip Hop Radio in Milwaukee. By the way, I think I was playlisted as well and one of the top songs that year on that station. And it's a bona fide banger, definitely on some porn funk type shit again. What I did there, instead of sampling from the vinyl, I sampled from like an audio clip online that was like really lo-fi and bad quality, but it sounded more grimy and gritty, which made it perfect for your basic boom bap hip hop banger. So that's what I did, and it actually sounded better than trying to sample it from the record. But anyway, there, yep, definitely a banger, bringing it back, part two. Next up, one of my personal favorites from the album, track called That's That Shit, featuring Awkward from New York, also IDE from New York, from Creative Juices crew, of course. And it's got a lifelong on it, and Shy 360, who's actually from Israel, but he sounds like he's from Brooklyn, actually. He probably ripped it the hardest out of everyone on this banger. That's one of my personal favorites on the album. I sampled some haunting female vocal type Italian soundtrack on it that's pretty obscure. So, and put some hard 90s style boom bap drums on that. So it's definitely one of my favorite beats back then. That's that shit. Next up, Obey the Sensei, featuring Mood Swangs and also Slain. I sampled some dialogue from a well-known Italian horror movie there, so if you're into that, you should definitely know what that is. And then some stabby type of loops from like some obscure record, and that's all I'm gonna say. But it's a banger anyway. Obey the Sensei. Next up, Sick With It, featuring Mike Styles again, and also Neighbor Rock from Porn Theater Ushers in Boston, I believe. Yeah, Boston. A lot of Boston MCs on this. I mean, through Drew Garrity and Commonwealth Records out there, and otherwise too. That one I really try to push. I do a lengthy scratch solo at the end of the song, and I really try to push all the limits on what I can do with scratching, and I think I succeeded in that. Just check it out, if you're into crazy scratching, because there's a lot of it at the end of Sick With It, which is also like a stabby banger on hard hip hop drums. As is the beat on the next track, track 11 on this Untouchable album, is a track called Work Hard, but we also play hard, featuring my people Strange Brew from Milwaukee. Just found a lot of small sounds, some spaced out sounds, some stabs, some other stuff, and chopped the breakbeat up and made some, put some hard drums under it, and yeah, just made a beat out of it that way. That I used to do a lot back then. Next up, Playtime's Over, featuring Jay Sean, Crumb Snatcher, and Rip Shop from Boston too. That was also part of the deal I did with Drew Garrity and Commonwealth Records, and is another stabby, funky boom bap banger. Next up, solo joint I did with Mike Stoss called Grand Slam. That's baseball themed and also really hardcore there. Um, yeah, it's your basic boom bap hip hop and dope. And the final track on the CD version, at least, of my Untouchable album was Hating Me, featuring Slane from Boston. And that was a remix of his song Hating Me, of course, that I got from Commonwealth Records. And it's on an epic beat, one of the earlier epic type of orchestral cinematic type of beats I made, with a lot of hard stabs and strings and just some classical music orchestral type shit. So that style started around, well, it started with Check, that I did with Destroy and Great Scott on the Renegades album, and the Back to the True School EP. But then I started developing that style. So, by this time, which was 2008, it was almost time to fully develop it. But I'll talk about that when I'll talk about the next album. Um, Hate Me isn't the last song on this though. That's an instrumental called The Wizard. On some albums I like to put an instrumental um, that was made in a really complex way, on some producer nerding type shit. We tend to like the beats that we spent the most time doing, and that we spent the most work on the best a lot of the time. It's not always the best beats, but sometimes it is, and I felt that this was one of my best beats around that time. The track called The Wizard, which is a dope hip hop instrumental. There's an online only version, extended version of this album too, that has a couple of bonus songs, a couple of them from my Renegades album. I'm not sure what the deal was with that, but I think it was when I signed a distribution deal with my man JJ Jensen. What up of Foundation Media Strictly Hits, that we wanted to put those on this album. I think that was the first I released through them, because they were so popular from the Renegades album. So we put Action by featuring Superstition and Rax One on here, and Extra Thug Sauce featuring self-titled Gun and Mouth and Magic Most. And also a new track featuring the Long Shots called The Store that I produced, that was on. They're talking about New York bodegas and stories from what could happen there for better and worse, on kind of like a Latin inspired beat. The final bonus track is 100% featuring Superstition and Ill Mind, scratch mix, which has more cutting and scratching on it in the end of the song than the version that's on Superstition's sophomore album Chain Letters, because we felt that it's such a laid back track that we shouldn't go off too much with the scratching. But I did a version anyway with a lot more scratching, so that's a bonus track that you can only get on the digital version of Untouchable. Um, like I said, the vinyl has never been available. Only copy in the world you're looking at right here. I'm still looking for a proper deal to get proper vinyls released on my albums. So if you're a label or anyone else who's interested in that, and I got a lot of classic albums, man, a lot of bangers, then get at me. But the CD has been around for sale for a couple of rounds over the years. I'm the White Shadow Norway anyway, and I hope you enjoyed this flashback video to my second album, Untouchable. And I'll catch you with more videos and the third album, Flashback, soon as well, I guess. All right, man. Have a good summer and take it easy. Peace.